Hello and welcome to the show. I am Andrew Laird. Special episode today, talking to two men from a new game that I've been playing for a little bit, and it just felt right to have them come on and explain more about the game because I'm starting to get questions that I can't answer, and I was like, what's the best way to answer all these questions? And it's just to get people who are involved. The game is Football.Fun. Adam and Caleb are here. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. I think we're going to get a lot of questions, and surely you have all the answers.
Thank you, Andrew. And can I say this is the most epic intro music to a show I've ever been on? I feel pumped or like I'm about to fight somebody or something. My name's Adam. I'm a founder of Football.Fun. We've been kind of live in a closed group for about 12 weeks now. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. Just having a really good time with that early community. They're getting a real kind of personality to them. We're having a lot of fun during the games. And it's kind of great to see that the vision is kind of translating to the community and kind of what we hope to see.
Caleb and I were talking just before, and specifically about the community aspect of it, that there are a lot of people who are clearly already passionate about the game. And what's really nice about it is Caleb was saying that a lot of the things that you guys have implemented in the game have come from the community. And it does seem like there is a core group of users who are really interested in giving, actionable feedback of how you guys can kind of develop the next features of the game. But they're doing that because they're having a lot of fun in the game and not just, oh, we're early, and so let's just like get what we can here. It's actually been a very engaging game, and the community is kind of backing that up. Adam, can you give like a quick, well, it doesn't have to be quick, actually, we have all the time, but like, can you explain Football.Fun to those who are joining either live or watching this back?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we describe it as a social sports prediction game. So it's based on the 5 leagues in Europe, plus the Champions League and Europa League. And I guess there's 3 things that I've always kind of prioritized from the start. The first is making this a kind of a skill-based game. The idea that, if you have $10, you're still able to compete on some metrics with the guy who has $1,000 or more in the game. So whilst the whales that we all know exist in these ecosystems and they're great, they'll always have their ways of flexing the big portfolio. That obviously their rewards in the game scale to the size of their portfolio as well. But we have this metric that we're introducing in the Club World Cup, which is going to be able to rank players based on how good they are at their selections. So you've got that kind of alternative mode. So skill-based game. The social aspect is super important. So I've played these games a long, long time. And I think the thesis is people play fantasy sports games for 2 reasons. One is because the bragging factor of being right is just one of the best dopamine hits that you can have. It's even better when your friend thought you were wrong, right? That's basically it. So I had my moment I've been obsessively talking about the virtues of Maguire, just because mainly I think he's actually quite good, underrated, and loads of people like to meme on him. And then when I backed him and then he scored that winning header in the last minute and I won, it was just like, yes, like this is exactly what the platform is designed for, to kind of make sure people can make those predictions. And then, the chat and like the group chat just loves those moments, right? Like you can create different moments like that each and every week. So that was the kind of second pillar. It's like being the best platform for that. And then the last key one that I've always talked about is the rewards and the feeling of ownership. So we kind of spent a lot of time on the economics behind these platforms. So even though we've tried to make it a really simple experience for the user in that terms of, hey, you own these players, they play in matches, they win points. It's actually, the economics behind it are actually quite thoughtful. And what we're trying to make sure is that this is the most rewarding place to play, that we're actually able to outperform not just other Web3 products, but also kind of traditional fantasy sports products by making sure that like 95% of what comes into the platform actually goes back to users and that people feel rewarded. And that's not just altruism. We think that's actually good business because the more rewarded people are, the more they stick around. And then there's other things we've always kind of had issue with, is like the FIFA Ultimate Team style. Every year we make you buy new cards problem. So trying to solve these, because these have never been solved before. There's always the kind of that commercial necessity which eventually overrides that early promise. So we've tried to design things like that out. So in Football.Fun, when you buy your player shares, you own them. We don't print new ones. You don't have to buy them again. They just belong to you, and you trade them on an open market. And the price is determined by what other users are willing to pay on that market. And we're actually completely separated from that market. When the money comes into the market, that actually just lives in the marketplace. It never actually becomes company funds. So it's basically just people trading between themselves. And in that way, we actually just take a small fee for hosting the game. And we don't actually control who wins or how much money people get. And our job is really just to provide that social platform where people can make their predictions and have fun with their friends.
I can't let Harry Maguire comment go without at least asking Caleb what he thought about it, since Caleb admitted to me he was a Man United supporter before, and I wasn't expecting Harry Maguire to come up this quickly in a fantasy game, to be honest.
Honestly, I think none of us would think that would be the star player that we would be putting the game alongside as our as how we sell the game in itself. But yeah, I mean, that moment was something else. I was like, the emotions and the roller coaster of that game was incredible. Like, I went 2-0 up. I was like, great, we're through, all nice. They come back 2-2, goes extra time. They get a red card. I was like, yes, okay, we've got this. Then they go 4-2 up. I was like, typical United. And then just all of a sudden, I looked back at it, and like, because Casemiro got the last 3 assists for the last 3 goals, and I was like, that's just that little bit of Madrid in him that managed to help United out for it. But yeah, it was incredible. That was like probably one of my favorite games for United for like the last 5 years, probably.
There's also a community theory that any player that leaves Man United is going to perform really well. So Anthony is the one getting pumped at the moment, because he's just turned into this absolute superstar since leaving, which is interesting. But I think it's actually more that people just like making fun of Man United fans, because in the era I grew up in, they were just winning all the time. So it's now a bit of a gift just to make fun of them. But that's the best part about football, I think.
There's also a good amount of Barcelona Real Madrid battles going on in the community. So it's lots of people who are very passionate about football, and so like that's what's really nice about the whole game. I'm going to pull up. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to be honest that I played this game exclusively on my phone for the first 4 weeks or so, and it wasn't until somebody had pulled it up on their desktop, and I was like, I had never even thought about doing this. But it's very nice looking website as well. But I signed up a few people who part of my Patreon Discord, and they're like, okay, I got my packs. Like, how do I play this game? Adam, can you walk us through how to play the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing you do really is you get 3 packs to open. So this is just like a mechanic borrowed from kind of any mobile game. Will tend to have like a pack opening loop. So we've just used that really as a kind of easy thing for, first thing you do when you get the platform, you just get this moment of fun, because one of the kind of key metrics in mobile gaming has always been like what they call the time to fun. So one of the issues with fantasy sports is often you don't get to have fun until the match starts. So we've just tried to give people like something to do. So you log into the platform, you open your packs, you are given also a certain amount of gold. Gold is just our off-chain free-to-play currency. Everyone gets some when they start in this version. And you can then, if you see what you get on your packs, so you may want to like...
I was going to say, I have a pack to open, so we may as well
try it. Yeah.
Yeah, because the animation and everything is pretty fun.
He's good. Like, he's won a couple of tournaments. Maybe not so good. Due very good. Surprisingly good. So yeah, you get your packs, and then if you want to trade some of them, so maybe you don't like a couple of them, you can just go straight to the transfers market, and in here you've got the ability to basically buy, use your starting gold to buy whoever you want from the market, and they all have variable prices depending on other player behavior, essentially. So obviously, right now, Yamal and Mbappe are, and pretty much any Barcelona player is obviously very popular, just coming off the back of recent success, and they've also got fixtures this week. So at the moment, you see a very kind of choppy, volatile market, and the reason for that is we've been doing these like mini seasons over a month, and in the last one, I was like, hey, let's see what happens if we kind of take the rails off a little bit. And the answer is chaos, right? Like, so people are doing crazy things, like just buying, like they're trading for like one match, which is fine. But the longer term vision of the platform is it is a little bit more long term. So we're bringing in some changes that you'll start seeing in the Club World Cup, where like skill-based leaderboards. So we actually start counting like basically how many swings of the bat do you take in a tournament? How many players do you pick? If, for example, you use the tactic, which a lot of people are now, of like just buying every player for every match and like trying to brute force your way through, the skill algorithm will say, nah, like you've not really made like intelligent picks there. So we're going to try and calm this down a little bit, but a lot of the time it's kind of fun. Like you wake up and you're like, oh my God, Anthony's just risen 20%. And if you're on the right side of that, that's great. So we're definitely not going to be getting rid of that. That will always be there. But there's definitely feedback from some people that they would like to be able to hold players for longer, and not have to feel like they have to trade for every match. But right now, typically you will sort of look at the fixtures that are coming up, buy the players you fancy to do well. It's a very familiar experience for anyone, particularly if you've traded crypto or tokens or anything like that. It works pretty much exactly the same way. You just click buy. It's like a Uniswap style interface. And once you have the tokens, they're in your squad and they represent shares in the player. There's 1 million shares of every player in this game. So once you have them, they belong to you, and no more will ever be created. So they've got that value. One of the key differences from, say, like an NFT based game like Ultimate Champions is these are fractionalized tokens, right? So what this means is even a player who comes in and maybe they've got a $10 budget, you can always buy a fraction of Yamal, and you can always have the players that you want. So there's no like financial barrier in terms of the team you can create, because we wanted that connection with the matches you play. The matches you watch every week. Like if you watch El Clasico, you want to be able to have some Barcelona players. You don't want to be kind of priced out of that. So that's the kind of reason we've used this kind of marketplace approach as opposed to a card-based approach. So it's just a different design choice. There's I love So Rare. I love other games that are based on that, and it's just a different our different take on how to do sports trading. So that's a kind of key feature. So if you also just don't want the players that you got in your initial packs, you can just sell them straight on this market for whatever the price is.
There was someone there I was willing to just,
and then you can just buy the ones you fancy for the next game.
I'll just do a live sell right here, even though you just said he was good.
There may be better choices.
Yeah, so I actually didn't have any gold because I had spent it, like I put it to use. Because one of the leaderboard is basically determining who has the most valuable portfolio, and gold doesn't count. So I was like accumulating gold, and I was like, this isn't going up. And I was like, oh, I actually have to play this game for it to go up.
We made you spend it for it to count, which seemed like a good idea at the time. But this is like the starting leaderboard. It just seemed like a simple way for people to kind of judge their progress early on. So in 4 weeks' time in the Club World Cup, this is when you will also have an alternative leaderboard. So this leaderboard will still exist. We'll still rank people on the squad value they've built up, but there'll be another tab which shows your skill. And this will be kind of independent of squad value. So even if you're a week 1 player, if you make better selections than Mr. Quack, who is our current leader, you can still beat him in week 1 and say, okay, you might have more money and a cool capybara pick, but I actually made better picks than you this week.
And is that just based on the equivalent of ROI?
So the math is actually quite complicated in the background, but it should be super simple for the user. It's the way I describe it is it's like swinging a bat. If you pick 10 players and 8 of them do well, you've hit 8 times. So you'll be quite efficient. If you swing 50 times and hit 20 times, you are less efficient. And it also weights the amount of gold you had in the player. So it will account for, you can't just say buy 1 share in every player to win because you had no conviction in your prediction. So if you put let's say you were to put, let's pick a player at random like Maguire. If you were to put all your stack in Maguire and he won, you'd get rewarded for that because you were taking a sort of very high conviction shot, but you're also very likely to get completely wrecked. So depending on how you want to play the game, you'd pick an appropriate strategy.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that, only because I had been like accumulating Yamal share. Do you call them shares?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have always called them shares. And as soon as I said it out loud, I was like, wait a minute. And I guess the way that I've been playing, not to say that I'm doing it right, is basically every pack I open, it's like, if these aren't guys that I think obviously can be top 5 players in a week, I just get rid of them. And I then use that to go into players like Yamal, Cherky.
Yeah.
I made the mistake on Lukaku, but I think I won once with him, and then I was like, oh, he's fine now. And but anyway, we don't have to talk about Romelu Lukaku.
What's the interesting thing about the strategies is that no one agrees on which is best, and it does change very frequently. So in the first seasons, we made the market more stable, so the prices didn't swing so wildly. So that put the focus of the game a lot more on winning the actual tournaments. In this market, when we've made it more volatile, a lot of the leaders are doing it through trading. So like if you hold big stack of Yamal and everyone decides to pump him, then you're going to do very well, even if you didn't win a tournament. So it changes almost on a kind of weekly basis as to what the best thing is to do. I think bear in mind, we've only had this out live for 12 weeks. Like 12 weeks ago was the first time I played it. That is how new it is. And we're making changes every single week that make it better. There's a huge update coming in 4 weeks. And yeah, it really will evolve to a point where multiple strategies will be viable. So if you are the sort of person, Dave, who always appears, he's won pretty much the last 2 seasons. His strategy is like very, very involved. He trades every match, pretty much rotates players every single game, and just tries to hit all the winners. That will be viable, but so will the guy who's actually just, I want to log in and I'm going to buy the 10 stars I really believe in, and I'm going to hold them for 6 months and see what happens. So the idea behind the game was this can be as casual or as involved as you want. And because you'll note there's no lineups in this game, right? There's no necessity to pick your particular 5 each week. So as long as you hold the shares and you use the contract mechanism. So we have a contract mechanism, which is quite important in the economy. Um, every time your player plays a match for you, he consumes a contract, and they start with 4. So when they run out of contracts, you still hold the token, or the shares rather. You can trade them freely on the market, but they don't win rewards for you anymore unless you keep them in contract. And this costs a small amount of gold. So it's currently set to 1% of their purchase price. So it's supposed to be like actually quite minimal. This is basically the anti-Ponzi mechanic. It means that the existing users have to keep contributing the same way the new users do. That's one function of it. The other function is it actually it's part of the solution for the FIFA Ultimate Team problem. This is why, as a commercial entity, we don't have to keep selling new shares every season, because we actually get some inflow from people with their existing shares.
Mm-hmm.
So these are kind of part of the deeper economics, which players don't really need to worry about because it just kind of fades into the background. But yeah, that's kind of the reason the contract mechanic exists. But there's no lineups, so all you have to do is hold the players, keep them in contract. If you can't be bothered with contracts, just bang the bar up to 12 and come back in a month. It's not that you don't have to micromanage it at all. So it means that you don't really have to pay huge amounts of attention to your squad if you believe in it. You can actually just kind of be a more casual player. But if you want to be the Dave type who is also trading around every match, that works too.
So how do the tournaments actually work?
So the tournaments are twice a week. And the weekend tournament is Friday to Monday. And then the midweek is Tuesday to Thursday. So any matches that fall in those windows count towards the tournament. There are different gradings. So silver, gold, and diamond. Diamond has the highest payouts, gold second, silver last. So that just really accounts for the number of games. Mm-hmm. So if there's a tournament with 20 fixtures, the payouts are much higher because it's harder to win. Whereas we have some interesting tournaments like this silver one this week where, because of injuries and it's being like late in the season, there are some players which are basically guaranteed to win something because there just aren't that many games. So because it's easier for them to win, the prize pool is a little bit lower than it would be in the diamond. So that's basically how it works. If you own the players, they're in contract, then they will play for you. What you're trying to do is get the top 5 players in each position and hold them and they win and get the most, you want the most shares in the winning players. So if you hold a ton of Yamal, you will get a bigger reward than someone who just holds 1 share. So it's whale friendly in this way, in that you do get rewarded for how much conviction you have in a player. But everyone who holds Yamal still wins at their level. So as long as they finish in the top 5 in their positions, like the top 5 forwards are all stack ranked against each other, then you'll get some kind of gold reward. So that's what you're seeing next to their names because you own their shares there. So you've actually done pretty well in that tournament. And the scoring works, if you're familiar with like an Opta-based system, there'll be no real surprises in there. We've spent quite a lot of time tuning it. So it does account for a lot of deeper things. It's not just goals, assists, and clean sheets. It does try to capture the overall performance of the player in a kind of realistic way. What's been really interesting about this is that no one really talks about it. All right. They just kind of go, okay, they've got used to it and it's usually feels right. So no one really worries about, how many points are there for a tackle or whatever. Like it just, as long as people have confidence in it, all the stats kind of fade into the background unless you're particularly interested. But the idea behind this was, if you're a fan, you know who had a good game and who didn't. So the kind of philosophy was, if you're ever watching a match and the crowd cheer something, they should probably get points for that. And if the crowd react badly, they should probably get docked points for that. So it's kind of geared to try to reflect the opinion of the average person who watched the game, because they're usually kind of right. Like, people do have like an intuitive sense of what a good performance and a bad performance, and we've just tried to reflect that as best we can.
Has there been any thought on extending it beyond 5? Like, what was the reasoning to just top 5?
Top 5 is, if you look at sort of why people play anything like this, they're usually seeking like the bigger win. So they get the big dopamine hit from having a one player that really hits big is generally considered more psychologically satisfying than having basically like a yield farm, right? So if you made it like top 20 players, you'd obviously win a lot more often, but you'd win less. So winning then becomes a bit like, oh yeah, it's like getting an interest rate from your bank. It's not as fun as just that big kind of jackpot sort of moment. So that's why it is stacked like that. However, the skill rating system that I've talked about is going to account for players beyond the top 5. So what the skill rating system does is it says it takes your best performing 11 this week that you had the most gold in. So it doesn't, if you've got players sat in your portfolio for like other reasons, like you just want to hold them long term, it will ignore them if they don't perform. It will only pick your best 11. And your best 11 can be made up of players that finish 15th. Like, if they were your best mid, then they count. So in the future version, a player that finishes 7th and misses out on the actual rewards can still count towards your skill rating and earn you kind of points on the leaderboard and extra currencies in the game as well.
Does that best 11 include just contracted players or anyone in your?
Yeah, you have to kind of have them eligible for the match.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like there's a lot. I hate to phrase it this way, but maybe you guys have set it up just for this reason. It seems like you have really gone out of your way to maximize I forget what you called it earlier, fun points or fun moments, like that. Obviously in games that involve money, people, there are people who are only interested in like, oh, I just want to turn X into 10X and I'm going to do whatever I can to get there. But it does feel like the fun aspect is really important to you guys. And obviously you have called the site Football.Fun, but it's not like you're building this game to say, oh, here's our game, and let's, hopefully there's some fun parts to it. Like, there are aspects of it that it seems you're concentrating on. Am I giving you guys enough credit for that?
Well, I think, both Caleb and I have been in Web3 for a long time, and a lot of people in Web3 are just depressed, right? They're fed up of like more products that just kind of they start with a slick marketing trailer and they sell you a token or an NFT, and then they spend 2 years building and then probably just rug you and deliver nothing. And like, we've lived that experience, as many people have. So this is why we just built this ourselves, right? And we didn't do any marketing at all until I think it was about 3-4 weeks ago, where we did our first kind of appearance on socials and was like, hey. And when we'd done that, we'd already been playing the game in a private group with community and friends for like 8 weeks. So that's quite unusual in crypto, because we actually built a product before we did any marketing.
How dare you?
We have never, there hasn't been a sale, right? There's nothing to buy. This is a free to play game right now. There will be in future, but we'll also maintain a completely free to play version as well, because crypto isn't for everyone. So there is, that's just a thing. So we will have both pro and free versions. And for people who are kind of curious about it, they won't have some kind of crypto onboarding process where they have to get crypto and go to Coinbase and do all that. They'll just log in, play the game, and if they at some point naturally feel that they want to join the kind of more currently calling pro but may rename it, that's kind of up to them, and that's fine. And the on-chain version is really targeted at the people who are already kind of crypto savvy, native, or understand how all these things work. But what's really interesting, and credit to our developers for this, is that the on and off-chain versions kind of work the same way. Like the technology that we've been able to build with from infrastructure partners like Base is the chain we're building on, Privy provide our wallets. This basically makes it so you can sign in with an email. There's no visible crypto, really. You don't have to sign transactions in wallets all the time. It actually plays on-chain pretty much the same way it plays off-chain as well.
You got to my question before I had to ask it. So yeah, because I think as much as you want to build a Web3 game that, obviously they rely on chain mechanics, I feel like the ceiling of users is only so high if that's the only option that you have. And I don't want to say like the better you can hide it, the more successful it'll be, but that's the only way I can really phrase it. But it is really nice to see that you guys have been building it. Like this free version allows people to really get an understanding of how the game works. And now I assume the on-chain version will be very different, only because, the more people will probably play the free game just as they get used to it. But having the ability to do both and have both of them be very engaging and effectively the same is really important. And that's like one issue that a lot of games have, of just, you want to have an effective onboarding game that is free to play to let people learn what it is. And then you go to the pro version, and I hate to like throw SoRare on this, but like their free version is very different than their pro version. And this feels like it's kind of as much as you can match them is such a giant positive, because it's like, all right, I'm ready to play pro, and you already know what to do, as opposed to, oh, now I have to learn a whole set of rules here.
This came from, we could do a whole show. Maybe this isn't the right audience, but if there was a sort of nerdy technical stream we could find and bring Mike, my co-founder, on, he tells some really interesting stories about how he's kind of made that possible. It's really, really quite clever. And it, as you say, if free is like step one, then if you're going to join the pro version, you need to feel confident. Like you've been in your kind of training wheel, they've come off, you've figured out how to play the game. So we're going even further than that. And the skill-based leaderboard is actually going to be shared between free and pro, because it doesn't actually matter, right? If you're in the same way the $10 player can be judged against the guy, like we have guys who have $100,000 portfolios in other games, right? And that just is a thing. It's great, but they are going to be, in skill terms, weighted against the $10 player. And there's no reason you can't also weight them against the free-to-play player, because they're both just making picks and they're sizing their predictions with the resources that they have. And we can actually just make the math balance that out. So maybe we'll need a free-to-play leaderboard and a pro leaderboard, but we can also have a shared leaderboard, so that even as a free-to-play player, you can be like, hey, you know what? I'm good at this. I'm competing with the best that are on this allegedly pro version. And that's why I say we might change the pro version, the name of pro, because it kind of makes them sound automatically better when they're not necessarily. It's just a kind of different format of the game. There's one format of the game where this is for you as a crypto native user who wants to trade their tokens, right? And then this is the other environment where you don't actually care. Maybe you just want to play for fun, and that's absolutely fine. Probably we'll put some ads in the free-to-play version, like traditional kind of mainstream monetization. Maybe there's a $5 a month season pass or something where you can get rid of them. So we'll make some money off the free-to-play players because everyone's time is valuable. So it's not like free-to-play players are actually free; they're actually paying with their time and attention. And we can reward them as well. They can get football jerseys and tickets to games and stuff like that. So it's that's the vision we've got, is to try and make those as close as possible, as you say.
So you mentioned earlier that you've been playing. Did you say 12 weeks?
Yeah. So February, it was middle of February, was when I first got the login to the app, and we were able to play our first game week. So we started just onboarding our friends, and then just didn't stop. And that now I think we've got about 1,500 accounts created. Probably 700, 800 of them are still active, which is pretty good going for a game in like really, really early stages. Most established like gaming studios wouldn't even let players near it for a year until they kind of finished polishing it. But we're confident in, it's fun already because it's actually a very simple game. You have players, they score in real life. It's social. That current core element isn't actually that innovative. When you think about it, like that, you can have that experience in many other games. The real innovations are what you're going to see next. The things like having the skill-based ranking system, combining free-to-play and pro versions in a kind of sensible way, economics that don't suck, right? These are the real innovations. The actual core loop, we're always confident in because it's actually not different. That's not the bit that fans dislike, right? They dislike all the other stuff.
I think one of the huge benefits, and like props to your dev team, that it looks quite polished for not being around that long. Like they clearly have taken a lot of time and put in created something that's very, like you keep saying it, you want it to be simple, and everything is kind of laid out in a very understandable way. Like I can understand once when you first go in, you're kind of like, you're not overwhelmed, but you're just like, all right, like, what do I do? And everything is kind of set up in a very easy way. Now that you have kind of this, at least a core group of people who are testing it out, and Caleb, maybe this is more for you in terms of this new competition, the teams that are setting up that I'm trying to get my own group on. If you can talk a little bit about that, of just kind of what the next step is in terms of like trying to get more people to join the game.
Yeah, sure. So obviously, yesterday we launched the captain side of things, kind of our first activation with creators, kind of across different genres, whether that's FPL's already creators, football fans that are just more on CT, football manager fans like Kempy, and everything like that. And the goal of this is very much to just drive more people who love football to try the game. So kind of the network effect of getting the communities from these creators to join the game, get the rivalries going. Something we're kind of doubling down on is really the feuds and the tribalism between people and who like the teams that they support. So Ola's obviously a big Arsenal fan, and there's a lot of, like you say, already tribalism between Barcelona and Real Madrid fans, between the captains and everything like that. So this is very much a first test to see how the different audiences from different sections within Web3 and a little bit of Web2 as well react to the game, how much they enjoy it, get a further core group of testers to do it, and also make it a little bit more competitive. So obviously currently you get your own social leaderboard, but now we're starting to build sub communities within that of like people working together and strategizing together. Had a few of the captains already message me, working out like logistics or timings to kind of work out their strategies, and I think they'll be kind of coordinating alongside that together to pick certain players, and trying to basically game this whole league and the competition in itself. So the big focus is very much to get more players that love football. The core of all of this is very much to build a community surrounded by football, and then kind of taps into the game itself and ties back to that. So this is our first test to kind of see the reception from the different audiences, gamify it and make it a little bit more competitive, and then we'll look to iterate it for future campaigns like the Club World Cup and everything like that.
Yeah, I think this idea is great. It kind of reminds me of kind of like what Sora did with the Euros, yeah, with their rivals game. That like the idea of building groups within a community, or however you want to define those, but and being able to, as a group, compete against other people, as opposed to just joining this game and you're kind of on your own and you're just like, when you join, I mean, you go to the leaderboard and you start essentially at zero, and then you see the leaderboard and you're like, oh, 36,000. You're like, this isn't, how am I supposed to compete with this? And obviously you guys have that mechanism already of like ranking them based off of success on their level. And it seems like the social side is like, there are lots of different opportunities to have fun on the social side of it. It's not just you by yourself, but it's also not having to become one of 1,000 people who are all talking about the game. That if you do have these teams that, yeah, like you said, the teams themselves are strategizing kind of how to do it. And I really like that aspect of it because, a lot of these fantasy games, people tend not to join fantasy games on their own. Like usually it's a friend or somebody that they are familiar with telling them that they're playing it, literally like what I'm doing here, talking about this game. But so usually you're not there by yourself, but it is nice that you can have this community aspect of it right away of, yes, I can compete and like I can talk to people about this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's a.
oh, you
Go
go ahead.
ahead. Okay, yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that's a big focus of like the first step of like everyone, like Adam said at the beginning, everyone wants to compete with their friends and be able to have one up on them. But there's also a nice dynamic of being able to like be together and strategize together, especially like the behavior you see in crypto and everything like that is people tend to all create their groups or friends and everything like that to basically strategize like what are they looking at, what are they looking to trade. And within football and FPL is very similar. Like on just traditional FPL, I'll go and I'll show my mates like who I'm basically picking the week, or I'll do it kind of post the kind of lockdown window. I'll be like, okay, yeah, I took these 3 transfers and everything like that. So there's an interesting dynamic there of like still being able to compete individually against your friends, but also having like a one goal to work together against other people and kind of making sub communities within the community to increase the competitiveness, give bigger bragging rights, and also change strategies. Because the second you start working as a group, strategies change in terms of how you can look to maximize and kind of looking for the outliers, the differentials, and everything like that. So yeah, that's a big focus. We're going to have a lot of other social dynamics on how we kind of look to amplify this, make it more fun socially. But yeah, this is kind of the first step in that direction.
Yeah, Caleb said pretty much what I was going to say. I think, yeah, we've gone for that different approach of like cooperative fantasy, which is unusual, but is actually quite common in Web3 in that you do have these groups. So it kind of caters to that. And also because we're adding the skill leaderboard, we can still be on the same team, but I can still beat you. So, you still get that element of the team. If the team performs well, we all get a boost to our collective rewards, but I'm still trying to beat you on the skill leaderboard. And one of the things you picked up on, which is completely correct, is that as a new user joining in the middle of a season at the moment, it sucks because you just look at it and you go, I just can't, I'm never going to catch Mr. Quack, right? You're just never going to get there. And that is a temporary thing. So in future, you're going to have divisions. So when you start as a new player, you will start against other new players and all the people at the bottom. It's like, call it Division 5. And if you perform well in your first week or two, you'll probably get out of that division pretty quick. But you don't have to look, crane your neck and sort of look up above at all the other people yet. You get promoted. You can get relegated back down if you're not performing. And the early divisions will be pretty easy and like forgiving. But then the top division will be just a horrible place. Like we want staying in like the top division to be like one of the badges of honor in fantasy. Like really, really tough and competitive. You're quite likely, if you have a few bad tournaments, you might get relegated. But those people like it, like the competitive player. They want that kind of environment. And the most motivating thing you can do to a competitive player is actually to relegate them. Like it just makes them more determined to kind of come back and play. Whereas the new player, they just want to see want validation that they belong, right? They want a quick promotion, and that works too.
Yeah, and I think the mental side of competition is very clear on this leaderboard, that you have a free to play game and there are people who are accumulating tons of gold here playing this game all for free. And I think obviously there's some part of it is like, all right, well, when there is a pro version or whatever you guys call it, like I just want to make sure I'm as prepared as possible. But enough people are having fun in this game right now that they continue to play in this free to play game, which is just not, that just doesn't happen that often. Like you mentioned, that a lot of Web3 projects kind of wait until they think the product is completely polished, and then they put it out if it ever comes out. And you guys, but like I said, it looks quite polished already. But allowing people to kind of learn this game and figure out how they want to play it, or what skills that they have that are best used in the game as the site is being built as well, or as the game is being built, excuse me, just feels like a huge plus. And also kind of gives them, gives users the kind of faint thought of like, I'm helping build this, because the way that I play is helping them understand like how users, look at a leaderboard or whatever it is. And so it feels, even that part feels collaborative.
It absolutely is. It's credit to our dev team. Like they're just so fast, and they're all players as well. So even like actually most of the team, like the engineering team, are actually not football fans, but they've become football fans. And it's really interesting. Like even my wife, who has never ever shown an interest in football before. In fact, she actively disliked it. But now I wake up to the sound of pack openings, and they're asking me like, "Oh, who should I pick for this next tournament? Why did you tell me to buy him? He sucks." Like, and a lot of the engineering team, they're all like, they're obsessed with the game now, and so they will work on a Saturday to add that extra feature or fix that bug that annoys them because they want to use it, which is kind of incredible. And in the same way, if we were just building this behind closed doors, it'd be so boring, right? Compared to what we get now, because we're able to play the game. We see the impact of the changes that we make, and we see the kind of reaction to it, and it allows the community to kind of nudge us in the right direction. So pretty much all the changes that you'll see in the Club World Cup, like skill-based leaderboards and whatnot, it pretty much all comes from user feedback, from people just saying, "Hey, I love this game. I'm having fun," but and there are a lot of buts because it's 12 weeks old. So what you see now is going to be, if you look ahead to July, August, you'll see at the pace we're moving, you're going to see kind of like Football.Fun 2.0 by then, I think.
You don't have to say who it is, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but what's actually the worst idea that you've gotten from the community?
I think it's probably everyone wants to add their own local league, right? So they're like, what if you add the Peruvian second division? And I'm like, how am I supposed to compare the skill of a player playing? Like, I might as well add my five-a-side kick around on Thursday and try and compare myself to Messi or whatever. Like, so yeah, that's often a common request. But we are quite focused initially on the kind of big 5 leagues in Europe, and the internationals as well. So we do cover the international games, and it might be that we can zone this. So maybe I'm quite obsessed with the MLS because of So Rare. Actually, I got quite into it. So I can see a future where maybe you don't directly compare the MLS with the European teams, but you could have like a kind of America's focused region of the game where you play with those teams. And in the Club World Cup, we are introducing some of the MLS teams as a special event. So the Sounders are there. Inter Miami are there. So Messi's going to appear in the game, which is like rolling it back. African teams are coming in. Asian teams are coming in there. So yeah, I'd love to do that in future.
Just to address a couple of people in the live chat, there's a link in the description of the video with an invite code. So hopefully that keeps working. But I do know that there are plenty of people who have codes as well, like in the chat has one as well. So
they can have mine, because after 12 weeks, I've totally run out of friends. So
we're in the new friends building.
Yeah, they're all in the game. All 12 of them are in the game already. So
oh, apparently my team's full. That's why was the link. I don't know.
Well, I'll get some more sent over for you if anyone who wants them.
So how do you introduce new players, like new footballers, to the game?
Good question. So we have we've obviously got a tight selection of players.
I noticed it's not everybody in the big five.
Yeah, you won't see like everyone in the world. The reason is it just makes it too hard to win. So people like to win, right? It makes them feel good. So it's focused on like the top stars. And at the moment, we've basically selected the players. The long-term vision is it's actually the users of the game. I never know whether I keep calling our players, but then it confuses them with the football players. And then I call them users, and I hate users because it sounds like they're addicts or something. But let's go with it. So the users of the game will decide who goes on the platform, basically by voting. So there'll be a mechanism for, like, through gameplay, you'll get these things called scout points. And if you see a player in, let's say, is in Ajax, 16-year-old, you're convinced he's going to move to Real Madrid. And you'll be able to like put your scout points onto that guy and say, I'm making a prediction that he's the best. He's going to be like one of the big moves this summer or something. And if they are like the most highly scouted player on the platform, then he will get basically made and sort of added to the game. And everyone who scouted him will have the opportunity to get the early market price. So like the cheapest price, because you've made the prediction, you were right. So you get the bottom of the market price. They join the market. Probably new buyers who didn't have that chance will buy him. And you've got a kind of another way to win. So this is like for the probably aimed at like the real hardcore users, but there are a lot of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'll have some.
Oh yeah, like there are a lot of these guys out there who have that kind of football manager scouting. It's like a super common fantasy. I love doing it. It also means then we don't have to include them all on the tournament platform, because it's then like it's an aspiration, right? You want to get your wonder kid, you want to get him onto the platform, and then other players can leave the platform, you know, as they retire. If they just kind of fall out of favor, if people stop trading them, they'll eventually just kind of hit a point where they just get cut, basically, and sort of people can sell them back into the peer-to-peer decks, but they just kind of disappear over time and get replaced with new players that people are voting on.
I like this, like MLS discovery rights, but actual discovery.
Yeah.
My favorite was Kevin De Bruyne discovered by the Chicago Fire recently. Yeah.
Good pick.
Yeah. I think we covered all the questions that I have. I think what's fun is that a bunch of people looking for links. I can't tell if they're actually going through on the live chat or not, but if they are, I can add another couple in the description after the video. Was there anything else you guys wanted to touch on? Because I feel like we went through everything. It's one of those things, like everyone's like, how do you play? And we just like talked through it. And it's like, oh, it's actually quite easy to play. You just get your packs, but sell the shares if you want, or keep them and just wait for the tournament. I'm trying to already get my scouting done for this weekend, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, it can be that easy. You hold the players if they perform well, and in an individual tournament, like any player can win. It's the variability is very high. So we have actually had a lot of Yamal wins recently, but that's probably quite uncommon for a player to win that much that frequently. Like, that's just a kind of insane level.
It's crazy.
But even like the cheap players are so cheap that if you were patient and you wait for their like one day where they win, that'd be a good it would be a good selection. The players don't need to win every tournament. At the moment, everything is a little bit kind of compressed in like everyone just wants to win the next tournament. But there will be different options to play the game in a more long-term style as we develop the platform.
This is actually a great question, because I guess we didn't really go into the pro version much because it's not out yet. But yeah, so you buy packs in the pro version the same way?
So you can, the way we've set this up is you earn your packs through skill. We won't sell packs. We will probably do one and one only pack sale before we start the game, because it's actually a great way to seed the market in a fair way. So if we just turned the decks on and everyone with the fastest finger just bought all the Yamal, that would kind of suck. So a pack sale for the very first thing you do actually makes sense, because you get fair distribution across a wide number of people. But after that, we will not do pack sales anymore. People will just buy from the decks. What will happen in the pro version is that you won't win gold. You will win a currency called tournament points. And tournament points is what allows you to open your packs every 4 hours. So win tournament points, get your packs, and you get tradable players, essentially. So that is the mechanism where we've done that so that the pack opening mechanic remains a thing, even in both versions of the game. So it's always like, how do we make both versions of the game work in exactly the same way? And that's the mechanic we've used to do that.
But obviously people could just go in and buy shares anyway.
And if you just want to go and buy shares, it's a free country, and we actually have nothing to do with the decks. We set that up and then we let it roll. Essentially, that's like a peer-to-peer system where that's all governed by smart contracts. And the idea is we'll ideally never touch that again. In the early stage, we will keep the keys in case we need to fix anything. But once we've established that that's good, we will basically just let that DEX be completely peer-to-peer, and people can trade whatever they want.
And not to like put too much pressure on it, but do you guys have a time frame of when you think the pro version will be released?
Yeah. So by Club World Cup in 4 weeks, you'll be playing the same version. And then new season, July. I feel like I don't have to be evasive because I have good devs.
That's great. That's great. No, I think, it gives everyone enough time to figure out how they want to play. And then, get going for the new season. And, and is the expectation that that'll still be just the big 5 leagues?
Yes.
I say just, like, those are the leagues that really most people want anyway.
Yeah. We'll start with that. And it's also Champions League and Europa League. And we also cover the internationals, just so that there isn't these horrible 2-week breaks where everyone loses their mind and they still got something to do. But yeah, we'll keep to the 5 leagues. If there's demand and people are like, we just love an Americas version or an Asia version, it would be super simple to do, actually. What I probably won't do is cross them. It's actually really hard to compare the quality of leagues in a way people respect. It's hard enough with the gap between League One in France and the Premier League is quite big. So we've got a few scoring mechanisms to kind of balance that out a little bit, but it's actually quite hard to do that across wildly different leagues.
So on the leaderboard, this just popped into my head, everyone scores the same regardless of league? Individual footballer. So will does Yamal in La Liga score effectively the same scoring system as Haaland?
Yes, with one modification that accounts for the quality of the leagues. So if you click into Yamal on his score, actually, if you click the 251 and you go down to 1 or match, sorry. So this was El Clasico. So 30 is actually the maximum points you can get for winning the game. That's because it was El Clasico. So if we use Opta power rankings plus a plus the transfer value of the team. So because we've detected that these are actually two big clubs, you get a maximum score there. If we detect that you're actually in the Farmers League and you're thumping a 19th in the division team who are also decorators in their spare time, you actually get you only get 10 points for the win. So you get more if you beat bigger teams. So if PSG, for example, play Marseille, they will be competing on the same base as the Premier League because they're good sides. If PSG are playing like bottom of the league and just smashing them 5-0, they pretty much score the same, but they'll get 20 points less, which is not a ton, but it can make a difference. So say, for example, hypothetically, two strikers, one of them in the Premier League, one of them in League One, and they both perform precisely the same, the Premier League player will get nudged over the line just because they're at a higher level of competition.
Yeah, so we see it here. Douai had only 10 for the win because they played Montpellier instead of Marseille.
That's right. Yeah. But apart from that, it works exactly the same. Like they both get the same points for a goal. So it's not a huge thing, but it's just a nudge. Actually, in the simulations, it's still like marginally more favorable to be in an easier league. So it's not actually tuned that high.
Okay. Here's a question. How will we know how many shares of a given player are active or not, or available even?
That's in the player profile. So if you click that there, so active is the number of contracted shares. And then the circulating supply is the number of shares that players hold. So Yamal, because he's been bought a lot of, over 138,000 of his shares of the total million are in player wallets, effectively, and 90,000 of them are in contract. So that means when Yamal wins, you are sharing his win with all of those holders. So this is a really interesting dynamic, which is very different from other games, is if you obviously picking Yamal, he's going to win quite often, right? He's great. But your payout is less because he's going to be more highly owned. You're sharing the reward. Like the player earns, say, 20,000 gold, and that 20,000 gold is split between all owners. Now, if you win with Maguire, who a lot of people don't rate, and he has like 10,000 shares, you're going to get a much, much bigger reward because you backed him when no one else did, right? So because he's only got 18,000 shares, you actually get 8 times a bigger payout if Maguire wins versus Yamal winning. I'm not sure the sort of consistent players are starting to figure this out, but I'm not sure this is immediately obvious, like just how much better that is to win with a pick that is a little bit more offbeat, which I personally love because I got a little fatigued with games like Fantasy Premier League where the incentive is always to pick the most common player. You always have to have Haaland, otherwise you're just not going to win, at least, well, back in the day when he was at his best. Whereas this is actually like gives you a choice. You can hold the top stars, and probably everyone will, but they're a little bit more reliable. If you get a win with like an unknown pick, then that's like your big celebration moment.
And the circulated supply increases with each time somebody opens a pack and gets that player?
That's right. So that's one of our issuance mechanisms. Another is I'll not go into the super detail, but we also issue new supply in response to demand in the market. Sorry. So like if loads of people are buying Yamal, more Yamal will be issued kind of in the background. So it's like demand-led issuance. So packs is a little bit random. But the more people buy of a player, the more shares we will release into the supply. And we actually do the opposite as well. So let's say Bruno breaks his leg, and let's hope he doesn't. But if he did, a lot of people would start selling. And then the game or basically the market maker feature within the game in the background would start buying some of those shares. So we call that bot Motti. And he's like a sort of arm's length trading bot, effectively, whose job is to basically balance the market. So he doesn't try to make money or sort of lose money either. He aims to be neutral, but he controls some of the issuance of new shares. It's maybe a bit complicated for this one, but it's supposed to help sort of provide that stability to a market by sort of releasing when there's demand and taking them out when there isn't, essentially.
And so once the circulated supply of a player hits 1 million, it's just all peer-to-peer transactions for him.
Correct. It would probably never happen if the price would be so high relative to like other players that people would probably just sell. And then more would be kind of taken out as people sell. But yeah, it's a kind of theoretical maximum we don't expect to hit.
Yeah, I mean, I say that, and like as we see, Bruno here is at 68,000. That's a very long way from 1 million. So
yeah, it would, the simulations on like we've done all the financial modeling of like what happens if if we had like similar volume to big products like Polymarket or So Rare or whatever, and if it ever got to that point, it would just be kind of ridiculous anyway. Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't quite know what to do at that point, but it's kind of a theoretical maximum.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm actually out of questions now, even though I said that about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Is there any last thing you guys want to bring up before we sign off?
Just to really say thanks to all the people who are playtesting already and giving their feedback. It's super, super important to us. And we've got a lot to come. So Club World Cup is next, and then launch of the new season. So yeah, we'd just love to get as many kind of big football fans onto the platform as possible, and get more and more feedback and more players built up.
Yeah, similarly, if there's any feedback from anyone, or even like from a content, community, activation standpoint that people want to see more of, we're pretty like open to always jumping on calls with people, messaging people if anyone's interested, if anyone needs code, stuff like that. So we're very open to any feedback, or also any ideas that the community wants and would like to see. So feel free to reach out to me or Adam on any of that.
Is Discord the best place for people to join? Is that where you guys want people?
Discord, Discord's probably the best place for anyone who wants to join, play the game, get codes distributed from other people, discuss the team stuff. Discord is the place to be.
Okay, cool. It's not in the description for those who are live. It's not in there, but I'll add that link in because it seems like the best place to go for any sort of questions or any sort of Harry Maguire slander.
Yeah, it's a lot of that as well.
I might be his only defender. But.
Well, Caleb's contractually obligated to do it as well, I think. So,
sadly,
that's awesome. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I've been playing for a couple weeks. It's been really fun, and the community, the added teams thing, I think is going to be really exciting for those who are hopefully on my team, and they can be really good at it, so they can carry me closer to the top. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us, Andrew.